Good day everyone, I am Panunsialman Michi, together with my Alice, Minkito Desiree, and Obial Debbie Princess, that will discuss the topic which is journalism. But before anything else, we should not forget our learning objectives. At the end of the discussion, the students will be able to determine the journal is all about, to differentiate the journalist, and to perceive the use of journalists. Let's proceed. By the way, I am Panunsialman Michi G. As you have seen on the screen, there are two types of journals. Yes, it is magazine and newspapers. The question is, what is on your mind when you hear magazine and newspaper? When we hear the newspaper and magazine, we would imagine immediately about the image, right? Yes, the images, background, the color, the design, especially the text. Now, let's proceed to our main topic, which is journalism. So now, what is journalism? It is an informal, often pejorative term for a style of writing and word choice found in many newspapers and magazines. It's the artificial or hyperbolic and sometimes over-abbreviated language, regarded as characteristics of the news style used in popular media. Journalism is a manner of writing or speaking. As you can observe on the screen, from the word pejorative means that might be offensive. Work it violates the rule. Here in journalism, we are showing that they are violating some rules and grammar. So let's proceed to the examples. So here are an examples of journalism. It's a kilt of instant words patched together out of other parts of speech. Adjectives are used as nouns. Greats, notables. Nouns are used as verbs. To host, to eye, or they are chopped off to form verbs. Infuse, emote, or they are padded to form verbs. Beef up, put teeth into. This is a world where eminent people are famed and their associates are staffers, where the future is always upcoming and someone is forever firing off a note. As I've told you earlier, it is pejorative. It does violate some rules about parts of speech, like the example with adjectives. Greats, notables become nouns. They are chopped off to form verbs. Infuse, emote. Infuse instead of enthusiasm. Emote instead of emotion. They violating the part of speech or the proper use of words. So, why do we often see the use of journalists in newspapers and magazines, especially the headlines? So let's proceed. Because headlines can occupy a lot of space. Writers have created their own shorthand vocabularies to create dramatic and snappy titles. Some of this terminology involves uncommon noun, verb, and adjectives usage that are rarely seen elsewhere. So we have cliches, occasional neologism, artness, sensationalizing adjectives, unusual or faulty syntax, jargons, and overwriting. Journalists often fall into a sloppy style of writing. These styles of writing are called journalists. So again, I am Panunsialman Michi and I will give the floor for the next reporter for the continuation of our topic to Miss Debbie Obial. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Debbie Princess Ayubial and I'm going to discuss the difference between journalism and Journalese. So this is the continuation report of Miss Pananshalman. If you are confused between the two, let me share to you what is the difference between Journalese and Journalese. Okay, so Journalese is a related term of Journalese. As nouns, the difference between Journalese and Journalese. So, in Miss Pananshalman's report, she already discussed what is Journalese. Journalese is a style of writing used in some newspapers and magazines, characterized by hyperbolic language and clip syntax. So, what is hyperbolic language? Hyperbolic language is relating to or marked by language that exaggerates or overstates the truth, and clip syntax, or clipping, also called truncation or shortening, is a word formation by removing some segments of an existing word to create a synonym. Clipping differs from abbreviation, which is based on a shortening of the written rather than the spoken form of an existing word or phrase. So, while Journalese is originally the keeper of a personal journal who writes in it regularly. So, journalists are a person who writes for newspapers, magazines, or news websites, or prepares news to be broadcast. So, one of whose occupation is journalism, originally only writing in the printed press. So, this one is also a journalist because he or she write originally in the printed press. She write or gather information in her own. And a reporter who professionally does living reporting on news and current events. So this one is also a journalist because reporters are responsible for delivering updates and analysis on current happening with the main goal to keep public updated. So they create stories and breaking news through different channels such as radio, televisions, and online news sites. So in simple words, the difference between the two is journalist is the style of writing and journalist is a person who writes for newspapers and magazines. So that's all for my topic, and to continue this discussion about journalism, I will pass the floor to Ms. Mingito.
Hello and good day to everyone. I am Desiree Mingito, the last reporter, and my topic was all about the origin of journalese. Journal comes from an old French word which means daily, jour being the French word for day as in soup du jour or soup of the day. Is used to form adjectives and nouns describing things and characteristics of a city, region, or country, such as the people and the language spoken by these people. Used to form nouns meaning the jargon used by a particular profession or in a particular context. Journalist, a style of writing used in some newspapers and magazines, characterized by cliché, hyperbolic language, and clip syntax. Journalist is an informal, often pejorative term for a style of writing and word choice found in many newspapers and magazines. As early as the 1880s, people criticized the stilted, cliched language used in journalism as journalists. Journalists who write many similar stories under time pressure may fall back on cliched or familiar phrases. Journalist is generally spoken unconsciously by tens of thousands of journalists and is apparently understood by their millions of readers. One of the first prominent thinkers to describe journalists was the British novelist Keith Waterhouse in his book on newspaper style, who identified tabloides, as he called it, as a distinct subgenre. But in the decades since publication, many of the former tabloides words have found common usage not just in the Mirror and the Daily Star, but in opinion leader publications, such as the Telegraph and the Times as well. That would be all. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.